BioShock for the first time recently, and it actually lived up to all the hype. Let's get into it. Yeah, you heard that right. I played a game that came out way back in 2007, just recently, and I somehow avoided spoilers all these years. So I didn't quite know what to expect going into BioShock, but that opening really set the tone for it. Like the welcome to Rapture moment, the underwater. It's probably one of like my top 5 favorite video game openings of all time, and I just played it recently and it's all the way up there already. So the game starts out with like the plane crash is very dramatic, and then you're underwater and you see Rapture. You see this giant underwater city. There's fish and squid and whales and sharks and everything swimming around. And you get a tiny glimpse of like a Big Daddy up in one of like the walkways. And I already knew going into the game, I was like, that's dangerous, I think. I don't think that that's a good guy. So I was like, okay, I get to see one of my enemies like right here as I'm just slowly floating through this beautiful underwater scenery. And you kind of start to feel the tone setting in there. You're like, okay, I'm starting to get the vibe of like where this game could be going. And speaking of the visuals, this game has held up over time incredibly well. This game has aged like a fine wine. I know that's a cheesy thing to say. I'm gonna say it anyway, and we're leaving it in this video because it is the truth. I discovered pretty quickly that the game is pretty hands-off when it comes to the story, but so much storytelling is happening in the environment around you. I'm usually not one to pick up every single book, listen to every single tape in game. Sometimes I'll listen to a few, go back and read some stuff, but I actually would find a tape and I would like listen to the entirety of it because they were very story rich, and it really gave me a lot more insight into what was happening and how this underwater paradise basically went to shit. Just the details that are in every section of this world that you're exploring. You can see like the posters, the furniture. It's grungy, but you can tell there was this beauty to it before everything went to hell. And also, I'm a sucker for really good audio design where there's not always a lot going on in your headphones, but like you'll just hear something faint in the distance. You'll hear music grow louder as you get closer to it. It's like, are those footsteps? Is that water dripping from somewhere? And then as you get closer, you find out, okay, this isn't danger. And then suddenly you turn around the corner and there's something trying to attack you. And speaking of the enemies in this game, they're creepy. The splicers are like disfigured. They have hooks for hands. There's enemies that disappear and then suddenly reappear in front of you. And of course, the big daddies who you can just hear their hulking footsteps, and they give me Mr. X from Resident Evil 2 vibes. I hear the footsteps, I stop in my tracks, and I'm trying to figure out, where is it? Where's it going? How do I avoid it? If I can't avoid it, how am I gonna fight it and then get away from it? So they were pretty formidable at first until I, got fully equipped, and then I felt confident taking them on. And then there's the combat of BioShock, which did take me a little bit of getting used to, but I think I adapted pretty quickly to wielding the plasmids with one hand and then like the guns and weapons in the other. The plasmids became my favorite thing very quickly. I enjoyed figuring out combos with the plasmids. Shout out to the bees, making your enemies just panic. And also it was just really fun to just throw some bees at your enemies.
No, not the bees! Not the bees! Ah!
You don't get to do that often in games, so it was just really fun. And even though it did take me a little bit of time to get used to this nice dual wielding mechanic, it was really refreshing to play a video game where the combat mechanics aren't overly complicated. I feel like we see a lot of really drawn out, complicated mechanics in some of the modern games, extremely detailed to the point of being overdone UIs. So this was a nice step back to the year 2007 where things were just a little bit simpler. And while we're on the topic of simple little things, just gotta give a shout out to the hacking mechanic in BioShock. I loved the puzzle with the pieces and moving the pipes. It's just really satisfying. It's such a simple little mechanic. Quick spoiler warning, if you're like me and you haven't played these games, we're gonna talk about some pretty in-depth story elements and like one of the biggest plot twists, I think, in video game history. I'm playing this game, I'm enjoying it. I think I'm on a rescue mission of some sort, And then there's the wall with the words, "Would you kindly?" And something just feels very ominous. You feel like you're building up to like this big moment within the story, and all of a sudden it gets ominous, it gets dark, suddenly changes the tone for like this moment of the story that you're feeling. You walk in, you see Andrew Ryan, and he goes into the big "Would you kindly" reveal. And it turns out this phrase has been controlling you, the main character Jack, the entire time. And my jaw was like open on the floor the entire time that Andrew Ryan is speaking to me. It's like he tells you to run, he tells you to stop, and your character is just obeying. You have no control over your character. And I just stood there in like disbelief of like, nothing is what I thought it was. I was like, I felt lied to, I felt betrayed. It turns out I was lied to and betrayed. Overall, BioShock definitely lived up to all of the hype that people like came to me with, and I feel like few games do that. And also, I just enjoyed a nice short linear experience, and I feel like that's something I wouldn't have appreciated if I had played it back in 2007. That was a time when I wanted like the big open world games. I wanted to like be able to go to every corner of the world and like explore every mountaintop, but BioShock isn't that, and that's a good thing. It shows that games don't need to do that to be good and to tell very fully fleshed out stories and have a very detailed world. So that's my recent BioShock experience, kind of in a nutshell. If you like this video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe here on our YouTube channel, and of course you can catch me with all of my other lovely hosts on the live podcast every Tuesday. That's where I give my in-depth thoughts on what's happening with video game news, what games I'm playing. Sometimes they're new ones, sometimes they're old ones. So until then, I will see y'all next time. Oh, and if you're curious about my reaction to the "Would you kindly" moment, here it is. I don't know how I feel about this. I can't even pull my gun up. I can't do anything.
Would you kindly? Powerful phrase. Familiar phrase.
Would you kindly? Would you kindly get this? Would you kindly find that? Would you kindly find it? Would you kindly find it? Would you kindly get this? Would you kindly head to Ryan's office and kill the son of a bitch?
Obey! Hurry now! Grab Ryan's genetic key!
What is
Would you kindly put it
happening?
in that goddamn machine?
What is happening right now?